Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And throughout the next 2 weeks, I'm going through the entire Mel Brooks collection. And this one was also a viewer request. And this is for the 1974 film Blazing Saddles. Here's your trivia question for today. As we learned from the Rockridge Town Meeting, what do all of the citizens have in common? The answer will be at the end of this episode. So, in the film Blazing Saddles, we meet a villainous man named Hedley Lamar who stands to make a lot of money if he can get the new railroad to be rerouted through the town of Rock Ridge. So Hedley's first attempt on trying to get rid of the citizens of Rock Ridge is by sending them a new sheriff, and this one just so happens to be black, which, due to the time frame, doesn't sit well with quite a few of them. Now, what Hedley was not expecting is for Bart to not only prove himself, but earn the respect of the townsfolk. Bart is also no longer alone when it comes to protecting the town of Rock Ridge, as one of the people that was in his jail cell was a local drunk named Jim. Now, Jim used to be known as the Waco Kid, and is one of the fastest gunslingers out in the West, and the two of them became fast friends. So now Hedley will stop at nothing to get his hands on the town of Rock Ridge, and especially getting revenge on the sheriff. He'll send a woman to seduce him, a monster to destroy him, and an army to take out the town. So will Bart be able to save himself and stop the town of Rock Ridge from getting destroyed? Now, apparently the original plan for this film was to have Alan Arkin be the director, and then have James Earl Jones as Bart and John Wayne as Jim the Waco Kid. Now, I never heard about what happened with Arkin and Jones, but apparently John Wayne turned down Jim as he just felt this whole thing was way too silly. Now, of course, Mel Brooks did end up being the director, and he was also the writer for this film. Now, he did also have a few cameos throughout the movie. He was the governor, he was the Indian chief who spoke Yiddish, and he was even one of the villains in the lineup of people that were trying to get hired by Hedley. So Warner Brothers almost cut the possibility of this film being made right from the beginning. You see, the executives did not laugh at all during the film's first screening. Brooks then quickly set up a second screening for the studio's employees. When the executives saw that these regular folks were laughing so hard, they agreed to take a chance on the film. The original title for the film was not Blazing Saddles. Originally, it was Tex X, as this was supposed to be a reference towards Malcolm X. Then they tried Black Bart. Then it was even the Purple Sage. Brooks then randomly had a shower thought of the name Blazing Saddles. The character of Bart is played by Cleavon Little, and I'm really not sure if I could have seen anyone else in that role, as he just had such perfect charisma for the character. But apparently, Brooks originally intended Richard Pryor to play the character, but due to his controversial stand-up routines and of course his struggles with drugs and alcohol, Brooks wouldn't have been able to secure financing. Now, here's something interesting when it comes to Pryor in this film. He's actually the one who came up with the character of Mongo. Gene Wilder plays the character of Jim the Waco Kid. In my opinion, this is another perfect casting. But Wilder was originally offered the role of Hedley Lamar, but didn't feel right for it. He asked if he could play the character of Jim, but Brooks had a different idea for that character. He first offered the role to Dan Daly, who turned it down due to his poor health and declining eyesight. He then gave the role to Gig Young. Now, on the first day of shooting, Young was so drunk that he vomited all over himself. Brooks then shut down production for a day and flew Gene Wilder out to play the character. Young did end up suing Brooks for breach of contract. Harvey Korman plays the character of Hedley Lamar, and this also, once again in my opinion, is perfect casting. Anytime you really need someone who's just an absolute jerk, Korman is so good at playing that character. But did you happen to know that Brooks originally offered the character of Hedley to Johnny Carson? Now, also no word on why Carson turned it down, but obviously that didn't end up happening. Madeline Kahn plays the character of Lily von Stupp. When she first auditioned, Mel Brooks asked if he could see her legs. She was taken aback and asked if it was that kind of film. Brooks reassured her that he was happily married, and this was just to see if she had nice enough legs to match the character type they were going with. as the idea for her character was Marlene Dietrich's character of Frenchie from Destry Rides Again. Another interesting thing when it comes to Madeline Kahn is she started working on this film the day after being fired from the film Mame. Lucille Ball believes she got herself fired so that she could be in Blazing Saddles but still get paid for Mame, which wouldn't have happened if she just had quit. Slim Pickens, who plays the character of Taggart, had a huge issue with saying the N-word throughout the film. Cleavon Little took him aside and explained that if he actually thought that Pickens would have said these words to him in real life, then they would be going to Fist City. They both ended up laughing about it and continued making the film. The character of Buddy Bazaar, who is the director of the film within the film, is played by Dom DeLuise, but originally it was offered to Peter Sellers. I don't have any information though on why Sellers turned it down. The character of Mongo is played by Alex Karras, and he was actually a defensive lineman for the Detroit Lions from 1958 till 1962 and 1964 to 1970. The theme song for the film, called Blazing Saddles, was sung by Frankie Lane, but Mel Brooks did not tell him that the song was going to be for a comedy, as he was afraid Lane wouldn't sing it. Speaking of songs, Mel Brooks has stated that the song I'm Tired is the dirtiest song he has ever written. There's a great genuine moment in the film when Gene Wilder as Jim is telling Bart about the townsfolk, and he ends his monologue with calling them morons. Cleavon Little was not warned that that line was going to appear, and his reaction was in fact genuine. Here's something fascinating and yet gross at the same time. Supposedly, this movie is the first film to officially use the sound of farting in it. Mel Brooks found out that cowboys would primarily eat beans and black coffee and concluded there's no way that there wouldn't be people farting up a storm. This movie was actually filmed on the same outdoor set as the 1973 film Westworld. Also, in case you were curious, the entire movie of Blazing Saddles was in fact filmed in California. Here's something you may or may not have been aware of, but in 1975, they did attempt to do a sitcom spin-off that only received one pilot episode called Black Bart, and it starred Louis Gossett Jr. as Bart. Brooks did at one point think about doing a musical version of Blazing Saddles in 2017, but due to the lukewarm reception that Young Frankenstein the musical received, he decided against it. Here's one last piece of random trivia for you. If you didn't know this, Mel Brooks has a son named Max Brooks, who's a well-known author, and Max was actually born during the production of Blazing Saddles. So, when it comes to the film Blazing Saddles, I love this movie. It's definitely got a special place in my heart, just due to the fact that me and my parents would watch this when I was much younger and laugh at all the juvenile humor. But I will say, rewatching it nowadays, it's still very funny, but a lot of its charm and appeal is on the crude humor that it has, and not exactly the storyline. So I really enjoy it, but looking at it from an outside perspective, I think I'm going to have to give this one a 3 out of 5. Now, if you do enjoy Blazing Saddles, other movies I recommend checking out are A Million Ways to Die in the West, Three Amigos, The Ridiculous Six, and Cannibal the Musical. So now it's time for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode. As we learn from the Rock Ridge Town Meeting, what do all the citizens have in common? Well, apparently all of the citizens of Rock Ridge have the last name Johnson. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie that you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.